Hey everybody, Pastor Greg here. I'm excited about life, and I know that you are too, because life is so good and it keeps getting better all the time. We're going to get into our message for today, but before we do, I just want to remind you that the 90 Days to Greatness pre-launch event has already started. This past Wednesday, we had an awesome time together as we dealt with the manifestation equation. This Wednesday, we're going to be looking at vision mantras, how to use your sun sign for deliberate creation and manifestation. If you're on our mailing list, you will get a link to register for the webinar. If you're not on our mailing list, just go to our website, www.celebrationsc.org, click connect, and sign up for our mailing list, and you will get the link for the webinar. So again, we have another powerful message here in our series, Wellbeing Abounds. Let's get into it. Always expect the good, and you don't need anybody else to co-sign it. As Ernest Holmes so brilliantly says, one in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. Well, good morning, CSC. Good morning. How are we feeling? How are we being? Awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to get right in because we have some wonderful things to talk about today. And now, as a review, in week one, we started with a fully formed idea. As we're talking about this idea that well-being abounds, what I talked about in week one was this idea that we, each and every one of us, are fully formed ideas from the mind of God. And what that means is that everything we could possibly need to thrive exists. I use the example of an apple seed. We know that everything for an apple seed to become a strong, beautiful, giving, loving apple tree, everything that it needs already exists before it even gets here. Yes, yes? Yeah. The sunshine, the soil, the water, someone to farm and take care of the trees. All of that exists before the seed ever comes into being because it's a fully formed idea. The same is true for you, and that's what well-being is. That's why we can say that well-being abounds, because we know that all that we need to thrive already exists. Last week, shut down the reactors. I looked at what are the things, if we say that well-being abounds and we accept this idea that we are a fully formed idea from the mind of God, well, why aren't we experiencing this well-being more often? And I recognize that just like a nuclear reactor, we can be reactors in our lives, and a nuclear reactor can destroy our world. So our reactors destroy our world. Our reactors block us from experiencing the well-being that always is. And so we talked about how we can remove some of those things. Today I want to talk about relationships. Well, I must be in the right room. I must be in the right room. So when we think about relationships, probably as soon as I say that, you all thought about romantic relationships. But, we have a lot of different relationships. And so often we're looking at our lives based on our relationship to certain things, right? Our relationship to food, our relationship to our body, our relationship to health and wellness, our relationship to our career, our relationship to our lovers, our relationship to our family, and our relationship to ourselves. We have a lot of relationships, right? Not just romantic. Yes, yes? Yes. And as we're talking about this idea that well-being abounds, what I submit to you is that there's only one relationship that you need to be concerned about. And that's your relationship with well-being. Because the truth is that in back of every relationship in this world that we have, as I just listed, food, body, health and wellness, career, lovers, family, and ourself, behind that is this thing that we call well-being, or we call God. Because God is the thing that is in back of and behind and underneath all things. Each and every one of you are a manifestation of this thing that I call God. You are God activated. You are God informed. That's not, to me, a deep statement. It's just truth. So when you think about your relationship to your body, you're really talking about your relationship to God. You're talking about your relationship to well-being. When you think about your relationship to your career, or to your lovers, or to your children, or to food, right? You're really talking about your relationship with this thing that we call God. So what it tells me then is that if we're going to understand and embrace this idea that well-being abounds, we got to get really clear about this relationship, because this is the only relationship that matters. And I was reminded, I want to come back to just a foundational idea. Emily Cady, in Lessons of Truth, in the second chapter, Lessons in Truth, rather, in the second chapter, she talks in that whole chapter about who and what God is, that God is not just omnipresent, it's omnipresence, that God is love, that God is power. Every manifestation of power that we see is God informed, that God is wisdom and intelligence. And so anytime that we're demonstrating wisdom and intelligence, we're demonstrating God. And she writes this, she says that God then is the substance, from sub, under, and stare, to stand. That's the Latin, right? God is the substance, or the real thing, standing under every visible form of life, love, intelligence, or power. Each rock, tree, animal, every visible thing is a manifestation of the one Spirit, God, differing only in degree or manifestation. And each of the numberless modes of manifestation or individualities, however insignificant, contain the whole. That's the truth of life. And so again, as if we're thinking about relationships, any relationship that you may feel you have difficulty with, as I just went through that list: food, your body, health and wellness, career, your family, your romantic partners, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your boo, right? Anytime you're expressing frustration about that thing, you're talking about your relationship with the all that is. You're talking about your relationship with well-being. And so if we recognize that relationship matters, it came to me that then we would need to discuss and look at what are some of the keys to a healthy relationship with well-being. And so we're going to look at five keys to a healthy relationship with well-being, recognizing that our relationship with well-being is our relationship to everything. And so if you get this right, everything else is right. Everything flows from there, right? What we're saying is deal with the source. Get in contact with the source, and then all will be well. And so the 5 things, I just want to give them to you first, is number 1 is intimacy and connection. Number 2 is communication. Number 3 is trust. Number 4 is forgiveness, and number 5 is interdependence. Okay? Now, these all kind of sound familiar. We could use these if we were talking about, human relationships. Yes, yes? This first one, intimacy and connection. The reason why relationships matter, or relationship matters, is because of this first piece, intimacy and connection. Because what relationship is union. Relationship is joining. And so we have this interesting opportunity as we are human beings, that we have the opportunity to live separate lives or to live a life of union with our source. But we have the choice. This is what was depicted in the allegory of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? As Adam and Eve chose, they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of separation, the tree of duality. They were banished from paradise. You can't live there, right? And as they believed this idea that there was something wrong with them, that they needed to hide from God, then they were banished. Because I use the story, I talk about the story all the time. God asked a very profound question. He asked them, when they were hiding, it asked, who told you you were naked? In other words, God was not seeing them as separate, seeing them as though something was wrong with them. But they believed that because of this tree that they had eaten of. And of course, if they had eaten of the tree of life, they would have come back into union. They would have come back in the relationship, and they could have stayed in the garden. So we recognize that as human beings, we have the opportunity to either live separated or to be joined. And that's what intimacy and connection is about. And so we talk about it so often here. One of the principles, the guiding principles, daily spiritual practice is not an option. Now, when we say that, we're not saying you must have a daily spiritual practice. It's not a law or a command. What we're saying is, if you want to have a off-the-hook, amazing, joyous, thriving life, it's not an option. It's not an option for that. If you want to live a separated life, go do whatever you want to do. But if you want to live this life joined with this thing, as we just quoted Ernest Holmes, one in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. Well, you got to be in consciousness with it. You have to be intimate or connected with it. That's the only way that then it can constitute a complete majority. You don't get the complete majority if you're living separate. And so meditation and prayer is all about that intimacy and connection. We will be holding another Prayer Champions class to learn affirmative prayer, right? Because it's a different way of praying. As I'm saying prayer, I'm not saying beg and beseech and hope and wish and, oh God, please, and I really need it this time, and oh God, I'm sorry. That's not what prayer is. That's an ineffective way of using your power of communication. But affirmative prayer is knowing the truth. It's that always expect the good place. I expect goodness because I know that's what life is itself. So whatever it is I'm desiring, I know that as I desire it, the source within me is also desiring it, therefore it will come into being. It can come into being if I spend enough time knowing that to be the truth, to convince myself of what is true. That's what affirmative prayer is. And then, of course, meditation. Meditation is coming back in contact with our whole self, our eternal self, our capital S self. Because we live out here in this physical world, and then we get tricked into the separation. We think that life is only about the five senses, and it's not. Meditation is what keeps us clear that there's more going on. Keeps us very clear that there's more going on. Another thing to think about, as I was thinking about this with intimacy and connection, I know we have a lot of yogis and yoga teachers in the room, right? And we know that the word yoga means union, right? That's what that was all about. The point of yoga is union, to get back in contact, this intimacy and connection. But interestingly enough, as we are a spiritual community, the word religion, the roots of that word is also union. Because that was the point of religion. It wasn't to teach you a bunch of laws. The point of religion was to bind yourself back to that which is yourself. That was the point. That's the root of that word, religion. Religion's not a bad word when you understand it. So many of us, we've abandoned religion for spirituality. Cool. But let's just be clear. Let's not make that word, give that word any more power. And recognize that religion and yoga are actually synonymous in their meanings because they point us back to union. The next piece, communication. How we talk about ourselves and about our life is an indication of our relationship with well-being. So you have this awesome power. I said this power of communication that you have, your words. The scripture teaches us in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, right? God spoke, and it came into being. And as you are created in the image and likeness of the Creator, so you have that same ability. And so as you speak it, so it is, and the universe doesn't judge you. The things of God are yes and amen. Yes, and it is so. Whatever you speak, it's neutral. Okay, that's what you want? Cool. So when you think about your relationship with well-being, how are you speaking about yourself in your own life? Are you speaking affirmatively? Are you speaking positively, right? Are you speaking from a place of possibility? Or are you constantly speaking from a place of what I call oh Lord moments? Oh Lord, what am I going to do this time? Oh Lord, this happened. Oh Lord, she might leave, he might leave, right? Or are you speaking from that place, right? Communication. Our next one is trust. I love that word, trust. And trust is interesting. I say it so often. Trust and surrender are synonymous when we're thinking spiritually, because what surrender really is extraordinary trust. And so you can't actually surrender to this thing that we call God, the all that is, the infinite universe, the one mind and back of all things. You can't surrender to that unless you trust it, right? And it's interesting because we think, well, how can I trust this thing? I don't know. People are saying this stuff. And yeah, I hear people are manifesting amazing lives, but, maybe they're special and maybe I'm not. And, well, they grew up differently than I did, or they must have had, some special circumstances, or, were born in a palace. And so that's why their lives are good. But we do it all the time in the effect world out here. When you get on a plane, you trust the pilot, right? You trust in his or her training. You trust that she or he has gone through the number of hours, the required number of hours, and they understand the instruments. You're not up there checking. Did you read? What does that mean right there? Well, how high are we supposed to be up, right? You don't do any of that. You just get in the seat, hopefully, fall asleep and enjoy your peanuts, whatever it may be, right? You trust the train conductor when you get on the subway or on the bus. We actually have the ability, we have the demonstrated ability to extraordinarily trust because we do it all the time. And so trust is important as we're thinking about our relationship to the all that is. I won't even deal with that, but because I want to move on. And then the other piece, as we're talking about trust, we then have forgiveness. And we talked about forgiveness last week. We cannot talk about forgiveness enough, right? Because love cannot enter where there is unforgiveness. And what I know to be true is that when we're talking about this idea of union, when we're talking about this idea of relationship and that relationship matters, what we're talking about is creating the space and allowing more love to come in to the situation. Because whatever you're dealing with, as we went through that list of food, family, relationships, body, health, and wellness, love will heal it. Love is the energy that's behind however it shows up in your life. Love is what's behind it. But love cannot enter where there is unforgiveness. Hear this, hear this, hear this. Let's think about our relationship with our bodies, right? Okay. You released some weight some years back and you felt good about yourself, but it came back. And now you're beating yourself up. Love cannot enter where there is unforgiveness. So that means you would need to forgive yourself and let yourself go. You need to come back to your communication and begin to love on every cell of your body, knowing that it is perfect as it is now. It's perfect as it is now. And your only desire is to just express more of that perfection as your body, whatever that looks like. You're not married anymore to a number, to a size, or a number on a scale. You just want to manifest and demonstrate the beauty, the love, the joy that you are. Let it come through as your body. What's interesting about that is then you will always be the perfect weight when that happens. You will love everything you wear and how you look. It'll be amazing. Food. Love your food no matter what it is, right? We have all of these different kinds of diets and it's wonderful. You know, we have a trillion different styles of eating, right? That some work for some and some don't work for others, right? And that's all okay. But what I find is that the energy behind that is a resisting energy, right? You can choose to be a vegetarian. Wonderful, amazing. But it's not in resistance to something else. You're choosing to do that thing which brings you joy and you lovingly eat your vegetables and it's all good, which means that then you can lovingly sit in front of somebody as you enjoy your salad with somebody that's eating a corned beef sandwich. But see, this unforgiving place, this is that place of resistance, and then there's no love. Love can't enter where there's unforgiveness. And then, of course, our human relationships. Family, lovers, right? Our brother, our sister, our uncle, our cousin. The list goes on, right? Love can't enter where there's unforgiveness. And this is why the wisdom behind forgiveness is that forgiveness is always for you, not for the person. Because as you want to thrive, as you now recognize that relationship matters and the keys to a healthy relationship with well-being, one of those things is forgiveness. You recognize that you're going to be quick to forgive because you know the experience that you want to have in your life. Again, I'll share it as we talked about last week. We've done 2 powerful series. I said there were 8 messages. There are actually 9 because one of them was a 5-week series. In September of 2013, From Pain to Peace, The Path of Forgiveness. That was a 5-message series. And then last year we did The Gift of Forgiveness. That was a 4-message series. If you need and want to work through forgiveness, start with those messages. We also sent out the Radical Forgiveness worksheets. I'll send them out again. Because Colin Tipping's Radical Forgiveness, those worksheets really help to walk you through seeing the situation differently. Forgiveness is not about saying the event didn't happen. You know that. But it's that the event cannot harm you at your core. Whatever it is, it cannot harm you at your core. Who and what you are lives above and beyond that event. And the pain and the angst that you feel is because you've over-identified with your small self, thinking that she did this to me, he did this to me, they did this to me. But when you're an eternal, all-powerful being, Superman doesn't live in that place or space and say, they did this to me. Because he's aware of who and what he is. He stands in the I amness of his power, right? And so this is the opportunity that we have. So I'm almost done, and I saved the best for last. Interdependence. And this takes us right back to this idea of relationship and union, and relationship is all about joining. I was reading something from a relationship coach, Allison Armstrong. Love Allison Armstrong. I think her work is powerful. And she wrote something here, she posted it on Facebook like a week ago, that directly applies to what we're talking about. She writes this: "My mother told me once that if I wanted to be married, I'd have to give up my damn independence and precious self-sufficiency. Truthfully, I was upset. My independence was hard-won, and my self-sufficiency, well, I could do everything better, couldn't I? One day, I read a definition of independence that said, free from the control or influence of another. Then I looked up partnership, and it said, persons engaged in an enterprise sharing its profits and risks. Uh-oh, they are in fact opposites. Marriage isn't for everyone because my mother was right, but for me, it has been worth the trade to build something with someone I love, admire, and respect, and vice versa." Relationship matters. And relationship is partnership. And so as we talked about this idea of the Garden of Eden and separation, interdependence is what's required for a healthy relationship. Because, see, some of us, even as we talk about forgiveness, some of us need to forgive ourselves for the separation that we've created, because for so long, because of hurt within the church or hurt within our families, we created a separation and said, I don't want anything to do with God. But you cut yourself off from the infinite well of your power and life when you did that. I did that. For years, I would not use that word, right? Because I didn't want to be associated with religion anymore. I didn't want to be associated with the Christianity that I grew up with. I had this deeper knowledge and understanding. Meanwhile, I was being mean. I was angry, and my life was constricted because I had cut myself off from my life. And so as we're talking about relationship, we're talking about joining. Interdependence is actually the most important part, because you recognize that you're connected to something. It would be as if you were traveling to a planet you had never been to, and you have a mothership that gives you information and can see the whole picture of what's going on. You're down on the ground. You're sending information up on the ground, from the ground. But then you just decide, forget that old mothership. They don't know nothing. I'm down here on the ground and I'm going to navigate by myself. But then you lose access to your satellites. You lose access to all the things that the mothership can see, and they can see that a storm is coming before you can see it because they have a higher point of view. But as we've tried to live in independence spiritually, we cut ourselves off from our mothership. That's what your source is. It's your mothership. But not only your source, your ancestors. All that have departed before us, that have transitioned before us, they're part of your mothership too. And they only have unconditional love that they want to send to you, unconditional guidance that they want to send to you, unconditional nudges that they want to send to you. But you're living in this independent world, in this independent way, cut off, and then that's why our lives do not reflect well-being, but well-being abounds. There is a mothership. Well-being abounds. There is a source. Well-being abounds. It's eternal. Well-being abounds. It's unlimited. Well-being abounds. It's here for you. But you got to connect to it. And you connect to it through this idea of understanding intimacy. You connect to it through this idea of understanding what trust really is. Understanding what forgiveness really is. Understanding communication, that your words matter. Because based on the words that you speak, you're either connecting and staying connected with your source, or you're disconnecting. When we worry, We're worried because in and of our own strength, we don't think we can do it. Good. You're not supposed to do it in and of your own strength. Interdependence says that I'm connected to something that sees more than I see, that knows more than I can know in this moment, and I trust that. You can really get rid of worry if you come into this healthy relationship. Are you ready to connect? Are you ready to reconnect? Recognizing that relationship matters. Are you ready to join, to be in union with your source, to be in union with your power? And please use whatever word feels good for you. Again, we don't want to get hung up on the word God. God is just a placeholder. Because if we limit it to God, that's just a box. But use the word that feels good for you. This is why Jesus used the word Father, because that was the word that felt good for him. Nobody else was using that word. Nobody was talking about source or the all that is from this place of saying that it is my Father and I am its son. Because that inherently meant something, that inherently spoke to the connection. Right? As a son of something or a daughter of something, it means that you have certain rights and privileges. That's why he used that word. And again, that's why it was radical for the time, right? And they wanted him to be crucified because he said, I and the Father are one. I am the Son of God. But we know and recognize now that each and every one of us must affirm that if we want to be in connection. You are the daughters of God. You are the sons of God. And therefore you have access and you have every right and every privilege that comes from that. You are the son of the universe. You are the daughter of the universe. You have access, every right and privilege that comes from that. You are the son of love. You are the daughter of love. And you have every right and access to all and every privilege that comes from love. And there is nothing that love can't do. There is nothing that love can't do. There is nothing that love cannot overcome. There is nothing that love cannot heal. There is nothing that love cannot transform. There is nothing that love cannot make better. There is nothing that love can't grow. As above, so below. If you talk to plants and love on them and sing to them, what happens? There is nothing that love cannot do. With that, I invite everybody to stand. Interdependence. Interdependence. Mother, Father, God, love, joy, peace, power, ease, infinite mind, divine mind, the substance which is in back of, underneath, behind, above, below, all around and on, everything that is manifested into this reality. That which is the life force in the rocks, the trees, the birds, the beings on this planet. I speak to you now. And as I speak to you now, I know that the you that I'm speaking to lives, moves, and has its being in, through, and as me. I know that I am not talking to or talking about something that is separated from me, but I know that I am intimately and intricately connected to you. I know that that connection can never be severed. It can never be broken. It can be ignored, but it is always there. And as I know that is true for me, I know that is true for each and every being here in this room and within the sound of my voice. I know that you are one with love. I know that you are one with the peace, the ease, the freedom, the joy that you seek in your life. I know that you are one with power, all power. I know that you are one with creative intelligence. I know that you are one with divine intelligence. I know that you are one with abundance and prosperity in every area of your life. And so as I stand here now, knowing who and what God is, knowing who and what I am, and knowing who and what you all are, I speak this word in confidence and with expectation. We forgive ourselves, we set ourselves free, we let it all go. Those times that we tried to live independently. We recognize we were living according to the ego story. We recognize that we were living a false story and we let it go. But we choose this day what we will love, what we will focus on, what we will put our attention on. And we put our attention on love. We put our attention on this connection. We put our attention on this intimacy. And we drop down, 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 back into that deep connection. As we are moving towards the autumnal equinox, we know that as our sun descends, it is teaching us the powerful principle that in order to spiritually ascend, we must descend. We must reconnect with our source. And so we choose now to have an intimate relationship with our ultimate lover. For we know that behind every lover is that one love. Behind every manifestation of food is that one love. Behind every manifestation of a family member is that one love. Behind every career and workplace is that one love. Behind our health and our wellness is that one love. And so we choose to love ourselves as we are loved on by this ultimate love. I give thanks and gratitude for each and every person here in this place and space, for I know that they are connected. For as I see life flowing to them and through them, I know that they are connected to a source, to an infinite well that will not run dry. And we simply turn our attention to it to experience more of it. I release this word now with gratitude, thanksgiving, and expectation, expecting good and only good to come forth in, through, and as our lives. Together we lift up our voices and we say amen, amen. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, God.